Hey everybody, we have a big update on MTG Arena Historic that let's just going to read to you. First, let's post a link to the article, and I'll post a link to the YouTube video that I will certainly make out of this. Hi, YouTube folks. Oh, by the way, I made YouTube partner, so unfortunately for my YouTube viewers, that means you get some ads now, but fortunately that means maybe I can keep doing this because some revenue streams are starting to come in. Anyway, that's a little aside. Let's get to the MTG Arena Historic update. Let me go for while I read it. Let me go into the left screen view, and we will just bring the article fully up on screen here, so you can somewhat read along at home yourselves. All right, I'll go back to the other view when I'm done reading. All right. This is just by Wizards of the Coast, by the Arena team. All right. Historic, the non-rotating format coming soon to Magic the Gathering Arena, is meant to be a fun digital experience for players looking to play with cards beyond Standard. Since we announced the format's specifics, we've had time to reflect. By the way, this is my sweet. If you don't have Auto Card Anywhere, you turn on Auto Card Anywhere, and then any web page that has a Magic card on it gets this rollover overlay on it. So check that out. Time to reflect on our previous announcement about Historic and consider feedback. Today, we want to present our new plan for Historic that addresses the 2-for-1 issue and how we will handle events and rewards in the format. So for those of you who, you can check out my other videos on the initial announcements, but the big controversy around the new Eternal non-rotating arena-based format that they're calling Historic was that they were going to charge double to redeem wildcards for cards in that format. And that led to huge pain point issues with players, and they let Wizards know loud and clear that that was a painful thing to do to them. And this is what they're responding to. So the below will take effect in MTG Arena on September 26th with the release of Throne of Eldraine. So we got a previous and the updated. So wildcard redemption, they're not bearing the lead here. Previously, 2-for-1 historic card redemption, updated 1-for-1 historic card redemption. Okay, I told everybody, don't redeem in a panic because of this announcement. Let them respond. Give them a week to respond before you do anything with wildcards, because they're probably going to change stuff, and they have. So if you dumped all your wildcards out of fears of historic redemption costs, I don't know if they have a way to undo that. Sorry, but I told you. Anyway, historic play queue. Previously, they were going to say always on historic play progress. Always on historic play progresses daily and weekly wins and quests. Always on historic play only progresses quests. Interesting. They're trying to, yeah. So what we're seeing here is them. This was too much for people. 2-for-1 historic card redemption. Big pain point for players, so they've fallen back on that thing and have settled on this 1-for-1. But now I've talked about how when they did a 2-for-1 not just because of a cash grab. They did a 2-for-1 because they're trying to solve a difficult problem. You should check out my video called like Eternal Formats Wizards, the problem child of WotC is these eternal formats, because WotC's business model is predicated on having people play Standard and care about the latest set. And when you introduce a fun, non-rotating format in which once you buy a deck, it's basically good forever, you just have to tweak it here and there, you can really eat into your Standard revenue. So it's a real problem for Wizards, and it's tough. I have empathy for them in trying to figure out how to introduce a new non-rotating format to Arena without it really cutting into Standard, and they're trying. So now they're going to try. So they tried this. That was too much. They've fallen back on this. They're going to do some other things to try and mitigate the problems of the Eternal. So looks like this is one of them. They're taking away. So they've given us this. What are they taking away? They're taking away win progress on historic. So basically this says that you can't really be an historic only grinder, right? Like if you want, like, the daily and weekly wins are so important to your gold generation and to your XP that it's going to be awfully hard for someone to be an only historic player and get all the value they want to out of the system. So you can see them saying, okay, well, we're going to try and do this to force players to still play standard, right? Historic events, monthly, unchanged. Historic ranked, available for December for a limited time. Okay. Interesting. New historic cards, 15 to 20 cards added in November through a paid event. Okay, so through a paid event but can we craft them? That's one of my questions. Maybe they'll answer it. So they're changing it though to we don't even know. We don't even know what the new historic cards are going to be. Okay. Historic packs, 45 pack SKU available. Oh, all SKUs available. So this was another controversy. Like, wait, so if I don't want to do your 2-for-1 wildcard thing, I've got to actually buy 45 packs at a time of historic card packs? Nope, all SKUs available. So okay, that's fine too. But this was the main one. This is what I kind of expected. I thought this did not go down with the community well at all, and that usually means they're going to rejigger. So they've rejiggered. Let's see what else they have to say. We will no longer be changing wildcard redemption rates for rotated cards in November. Redemption for all rotated cards will remain 1-for-1. The best piece of feedback we received and discussed was how much players want to test and brew new and different historic decks, and we certainly want players to be able to do so. While MTG Arena will always focus on standard gameplay, the 2-for-1 redemption created the wrong kind of incentive structure. It sure did. We want to reward players for playing standard and set up historic as a complementary experience, much like we have with Singleton and Pauper. Sure. So here we're getting to their what you can accomplish with historic. Historic events. We plan to hold at least one historic event every month starting in November. These events will range from things you've seen before to brand new experiences. They will include historic draft events. Okay, cool. Some historic events will cost gems. Others will be accessible through gold. These events will award progress on quests, daily and weekly win rewards, and mastery XP. So maybe you can be pure historic if you jam it into this 1 per month historic event, but we'll see how much just doing this can support you. But since you have to do daily wins and weekly wins, I just feel like having one or 2 weeks with an historic event is not going to get you there. So they are still kind of forcing you to play standard, just in a different way, different incentive to play standard, really. Historic ranked, a ranked historic best of 3 play queue will be available in December. Creating a new ranked format always has its challenges, and we will be watching how players start to compete in historic, and will take these learnings for future ranked historic availability. Historic ranked will award progress for quests, daily and weekly win rewards, and mastery XP. Okay, so if this is always on, it will be creating. Did they say this is always on historic ranked? Oh, available for December for a limited time. Okay, still for a limited time. Historic play queue, best of 1 historic play will be added to MTG Arena on September 26th and will be a way to play historic that is always available. You will be able to complete daily quests for the historic play queue. The play queue will not progress a player's daily win or weekly win rewards. Yep, okay, so really just looks like that's their big switch, that in order to truly grind the system, you still need to play standard, but they're not going to overcharge for old cards anymore. They're still thinking through. I did speak to this before already, but I'll say quickly, some people, like, I haven't watched the video, but apparently the professor was a little aghast at how introducing something like Worm Coil Engine could immediately render moot and obsolete all of these other possible 6-drops. But they have to do something to make sure that historic feels much different in its metagame from standard. If it's just post-rotation standard with the current cards, it'll feel a lot like old standard, and I don't think they want that. They want historic to feel something different. So I think that's going to be the driving force behind what the right target of cards is, and that's to try to not obsolete a bunch of stuff, but try to provide powerful build-arounds that really define a metagame. I think I do agree with Prof that like Worm Coil Engine is a little bit odd of a choice since it's colorless and generic, and like powerful artifacts tend to just obsolete stuff. But I think they could take an approach where they're adding some really fun, well-known like modern build-arounds, kind of inject a little modern into historic through powerful build-arounds, but not through powerful generic stuff that will obsolete a bunch of the cards on the system. So I hope they take that approach there. Historic card packs. We previously announced that packs of historic sets would only be available in the store as a 45-pack bundle. Instead, we will have all historic booster purchase options available for the time being. So that's it. Okay. Yeah, ultimately pretty light in changes. The main thing is that they've said, okay, we're gonna we're gonna set these prices as you would expect them, but we're gonna make you play standard in order to fully grind the system. Basically, they're saying we're not going to let you be an historic only player on MTG Arena unless you're willing to pay, because that means you're passing on a bunch of the gold grind. Is that fair? Is that better? I think that's less painful. I think that's fair. I think this was the main thing. I think people just want to be able to dabble in this without having to think ahead. Like, that was what was such a pain point for me. Like, wait, so you haven't even told me what cards you're going to inject into this historic format, and yet I need to craft cards for it today, or else the price goes up on those cards, but I don't even know what decks I need to build yet. That was crazy. That was pretty ridiculous. So good on them for backing off on the 1-for-1, and good luck, Wizards, on figuring out how to keep this new Frankenstein's monster under control. Eternal formats are problematic for Wizards in many ways. I will link the other videos on this subject so you can go back and look if you want, but basically they're trying to solve the eternal format problem, and it's a really tough nut for Wizards, and they tried to do it this way. There was outrage. Now they're trying to do it this way. We'll see how that works. But good on them for doing right by their customers. Bad on them for not just understanding their customers enough to know that this was going to happen, right? I just feel like yes, Wizards, you can sit here and use this trick again and again and again of aim greedy and then back off when your customers are outraged, but you do it too much. You do it too much, and it's eroding your reputation, and you need to start trying to aim for actually what players are going to like right out of the gate. Was there anybody in the building that was like, players are going to love this 2-for-1 thing? They're going to be fine with it. We're going to announce it, and players are going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. We're in. Like, you knew this was going to cause pitchforks, right? You knew it. How could you not know that 2-for-1 historic card redemption was not going to cause torches and pitchforks in the Magic community? Of course it was. So it feels like BS. It feels like you knew like, were you just crossing your fingers and be like, well, we're going to ship it and hope. Ship it and hope is just so WotC. But stop doing that, WotC. Come up with this first. You knew that this was going to be unacceptable to your community, and you knew there was going to be outrage, but you did it anyway. I don't know why. I can't tell if it's like that you really thought it might land and stick, or whether this is just your plan of trying to show customers that you're listening. I don't know. I'd be much more impressed if you just rolled it out like this. So, WotC, quit it with the, we'll gouge them up front, and then if they yell, we'll back off a bit. Stop that. Or at least be better with your aim. Come on, you can be better with your aim and back off a little bit instead of just slapping people in the face and then saying, oh, sorry, let me unslap you. All right, now I have not been looking at chat at all. I'm not going to scroll back up and look at chat that has scrolled while I've been talking here, but now if you do want to AMA me about this subject, I will start looking at chat, and I'll take some questions. And bring that up, and where'd it go? Can't take questions if I've minimized chat. All right. DJ says, no plan makes the audience happy unless they see a worse one first. I don't think that's true, DJ. I think you're talking like WotC now. I think that's the philosophy they have that leads to these insulting announcements that they then roll back. It happens all the time. And I actually think you can roll out reasonable stuff that people are happy with the first time. It is possible, or at least they can accept. James says, I was listening to Marshall on a 5-year-old episode of The Command Zone. He was talking about how much he trusts R&D to make good decisions and really do what was right for the game. I remember feeling that way back then, too. I still basically feel that way. I just don't like how they get there through kind of false pretenses. And Arena and Magic Online are the biggest offenders here. I mean, I don't think R&D... I don't think the creators of Magic do this too much, although they're not immune, but... Anyway. Best of one Eternal format sounds awful. Yeah, that's fair. Certainly Modern would be a wildly different format without sideboarding, right? Gosh, what would... If Modern were best of one, would just, like, non-interactive decks be the only thing people would play? I don't know. Devor hopes WotC doesn't mess with the card pool in horrible ways. That really worries you. Well, that's where the people who are going to be into... The people making the decisions about card pool are going to be those reporting to Eric Lauer, Aaron Forsyth, and Mark Rosewater. So I actually have reasonable hope for the curation of new cards to Historic. That's the thing I'm most confident of, is for the card makers and set designers in R&D to properly figure out what would make Historic a fun format. So I'm gonna give those experts the benefit of the doubt on that one, and expect greatness. How does this solve the problem from a user standpoint that our rotating cards are worthless? In apps like Hearthstone, we can just dust the old cards. That's not possible in Arena based on the way that the system was implemented. Sure, but first of all, you've gotten pre-dust. Imagine that all the cards you have already been dusted and you already got the value from them. They just let you keep the cards. It's not that simple in terms of the economic costs and benefits, but I don't think, like, old cards sitting in your collection annoying you is in your head. That's in your head. Ultimately, this is still about a value proposition for your Magic. You're going to spend some time and money, and you're going to get Magic out of it. Are you happy? That's the only thing that really matters. And letting worthless cards get in your head is just, like, I don't know. I encourage you to try and let that go. Like, are you getting the Magic you want for the time and money you're putting in? And if yes, who cares if there's cards you're not playing anymore sitting in your collection? Any idea as to when they put in people? I don't know when they're going to do human draft. I want to stick to the topic here. Oh, you're talking about other games, Mama? Yeah, maybe it's not just Wizards, but I mean, I understand the tactic. I think if you're a game maker, you have to lean greedy. You have to lean a little bit greedy, but I think Wizards has taken it too far, and it just feels like it's their whole game plan now of, no, lean way greedy and then back off. Like, that's just not a place. I don't think you want that to be your general tactic. Do you think adding cards like Lightning Bolt or Counterspell could make Historic feel differently from Standard in a good way? No, I don't think so. That's kind of not what I'm talking about. You put in Lightning Bolt, all you're doing is obsoleting a bunch of first option burn. And same with Counterspell. I'm going to fall back on what I said before. I think the right approach to injecting old cards into Historic is to look at fun build-arounds and use those as a way to drive a different... Make the format feel super different without obsoleting a bunch of the cards in people's collections. Yeah, that's fair, Wujo. Like, we can say, good, I'm glad you did this, but I'm not going to be like, thanks for listening to us, Wizards. Whatever, Wizards. Wizards is just doing their usual ploy, right? Ryan, I was in Seattle a couple of years ago and I ate at Paseo at the recommendation of the internet and some friends. I think about that Cuban sandwich once a week and can't seem to shake it. What should I do to cope? Move to Seattle is kind of all you got. Although here's a hot tip for anybody. Paseo is a Cuban place in Seattle, and they make great sandwiches. But there's a place now called Un Bien, Unbien, Un Bien, which is the actual the original runner of the Paseo restaurant now runs Un Bien. So if you want the true Paseo sandwich, it's actually now at Un Bien. I said I wasn't going to go off topic, but then somebody brought up Un Bien pork sandwiches, and that's, I mean, I can't not talk about that. I'm scrolling down, and Devore, you're saying yes, easily yes, and I don't know what you're saying that to anymore. Let me know if that matters. But Sunset asks, how important do you think it is to funnel new players toward standard and away from historic? Do you think there is an appropriate system in place right now to do that? I think it's very important. I think, well, it's very important to Wizards. Again, the big fear from Wizards, and the reason I call Eternal Formats a Frankenstein monster, is that it can create a situation where a player rests on their laurels. They stop busting out their wallet because they have their Magic taken care of. One thing, you know what group of people that Wizards of the Coast does not care about at all, really? I gotta. This is an exaggeration. Of course, they care about all their customers, but there's a class of feedback providers that falls on deaf ears to Wizards, and that's like legacy players. Because like there's no money in Wizards for like I say legacy players, and what I mean by that is people who have abandoned buying new product. Like if you don't spend with Wizards of the Coast, if you only buy like old singles, they're very much less interested in your opinion because they can't really make money off you. You've already camped out in legacy and you're done. And so legacy is this late stage Eternal format that is this end game that Wizards is trying so hard to avoid with their decisions. And so Sunset, this new change, basically saying, look, we're going to offer this format and you can play most things with it, but the fundamental grind, the fundamental free-to-play grind experience that we're offering here with Arena is a standard thing. And I think that's totally fair, actually. I really like where they landed here. I wish they just started with this, but your cards will matter. Your 4X of cards will matter. And there's plenty of events and things that you're going to be able to play them in. But if you want to participate in the day-to-day gold grind economy, you have to play standard. I think that's a fair compromise. You're being struck as one overzealous executive with no dailies and weeklies. Nah, that was hammered out in a design meeting. I could probably name the people that were in the room, with the exception of some new folks that I didn't work with, that were in a room discussing how to adjust this and came to this conclusion. And it was not some random executive. It was a room full of designers, I'm sure. Do you think that some of the greed and rollback behavior points to a disconnect between the designers who really know the MTG community and management searching for an extra buck? No, I don't think it's that. I think there are plenty of people in the room who know the Magic community. It may be like I don't know if there was a voice in the room saying, let's face it, I'll say it like this is the kind of decision that rests ultimately with Chris Kao. And I'm sure Chris Kao was in a room with designers talking about these systems and these approaches. And I'm sure, Lee Sharp is big in the economy of Magic Online and stuff. And Jay Parker is obviously going to be in that room. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with somebody. So maybe Kao was the final decider or something. But what we don't know is what kind of voices were in that room. So if I had been in that room, I would be saying, players are going to be outraged at 2-for-1. Let's not even bother rolling this out. But then I might get overruled. So what we don't know, we know what the final decision was, but we don't know what the debate was. And we don't know what the opinions of everybody in the room was. you as a customer, you end up just seeing the final decision, and it can feel like, oh, everybody must have been in lockstep. But almost always there's vigorous debate, and there are usually people who leave that room unhappy and going, I can't believe we're going to do this. This isn't right, but okay, it's not my call, right? What are the chances of them putting in a card like Wormcoil and then after Outrage they remove or ban it? I think they could do that. I mean, this is because here's the thing. Well, let's see. How would you do it? Because the risk in paper, like let's say you decide to unban Jace the Mind Sculptor in Modern, and Jace the Mind Sculptor's price goes through the roof, and then you decide it was a mistake and you ban it, and then the price crashes again. That's not a thing you want to do to your players. Wizards does not acknowledge the secondary market in their communications and whatnot, but they do think about it in their decisions, and they don't want to cause players a bunch of pain, financial pain, because of investment in cards based on expectation of their ongoing use and availability. So bans are a big deal on that front for Wizards. In this case, though, in a digital-only format, you can ban and unban with a little more flexibility because you have the tools to identify everybody who invested to get those cards, and you can give them back their investment. You can say, oh, well, you crafted these, or, we're banning this Wormcoil engine, but you have 4 of them, but you get 4 Mythic Wild cards. So great, you can change them into anything you want. That'll make it easier to do that kind of stuff in a way that paper wrestles with. Because paper loves to make balanced formats, but they have to take into account how angry people are going to be about card purchases they've made. It's a real thing. No rare dual lands in the fall set? That's crazy. I can't remember a fall set that didn't have rare dual lands. Can anybody remember that? When's the last time we've had that? Thank you, Fiddles. Fiddles is trying to get my attention. Thanks, Fiddles. You can catch the draft on the replay. All right, I scrolled back down to catch up with chat here. I'm going to check one more scroll here. How many R&D don't play Magic? If you're literally in R&D, you have to play Magic because part of how R&D operates is seeking out people who are available to come and play in a draft to playtest. So you have to be ready to playtest to help out R&D if you're in R&D. All right. Does WotC not view Commander as an eternal format? Yeah, it's an eternal format, but that's one that works better for them because Commander doesn't produce aspirational play. One of the big problems with eternal formats, besides, from a money-making standpoint, first they put cards into every set that Commander players are going to like. So they are trying to sell new cards to Commander players. And that's another thing. It's a lot easier to create cards that are going to make a splash in Commander or be played and adopted in Commander than to make cards that are going to be played and adopted in Modern or Legacy. And a big problem with the eternal formats is their placement in competitive play. Modern had the problem when I was at Wizards, where it was like there was this controversy over should Modern have a Pro Tour or not. On the one hand, Wizards wants to use the Pro Tour to promote their latest set. That's the point of it. Don't fool yourself. The Pro Tour is marketing, and aspirational play is marketing. So when you say we're going to make this new Eternal format called Modern, but we're not going to let you play it aspirationally. There's no Pro Tour to get to for it. Then that sends a mixed message to players that they don't like. But if they make a Modern Pro Tour, it sends a message to pros that the pros don't like, because the pros are like, look, what skill are we being tested on here? You have, for the last 25 years, said that the way to, basically the way to be a pro is to be the best at breaking standard after a new set launches, right? Like and that's a different skill set from being a Modern specialist. And so that caused a lot of problems. Anyway, I'm just trying to reveal some of the really difficulties that WotC faces in a world in which they want to promote standard yet support these non-rotating formats. Yeah, the pros dislike Modern because it tests skills that aren't their best skills. It tests skills that they don't like to put their time into. And that's why, yeah, pros can be babies, but they have a point. You can call the pros a baby, Robot, but like, if the NFL said, hey, we've introduced flag football. Flag football is something that the NFL is now super serious about for its fan base. Like, we really want to encourage people to play flag football. And then they're like, well, in order to support flag football as something we're trying to encourage, we better introduce it into our pro level play. So every 4 weeks, instead of playing tackle football, the pros are going to play flag football. And the pros would be like, no, I've spent my entire life getting good at tackle football. You can't suddenly ask me to be playing flag football as a way to demonstrate why I'm a pro, you know? So it's an analogy that makes me at least understand where the quote whiny pros are coming from. It is kind of weird to go down the road of being a pro Magic player and then have kind of the goalpost shift on you in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. Flag football is American style football, except you have Velcro flags hanging off the back of your belt, and if you have the ball to tackle you, you rip the flag off instead of tackling the person to the ground. Anyway, all right, that was a good talk. Thanks for sticking with me through that, and now let's do some drafting, shall we?